Hey everybody out there on the internet, it's me, Sam Miller, and welcome to another edition of Grinding Geezers. Today I want to talk about one of the most fundamental things whenever you're going out to the skate park and you're the old man who just happens to be there. It's your setup. Your setup is the most important thing when you go out skating because it's got to suit you, what you prefer to do. Basically what a setup is what is the custom fit things that you prefer for the way that you ride. And so I figured I'd show you some of what I prefer and some of the various styles that you might use instead of what I do. But this is the way that I prefer to ride. So for whatever reason, the skate that I ride currently, I've sort of learned has become the old man skate. I can't really understand how this happened, but every time I see a skate video involving like an OG rollerblader, I tend to see them in this skate, and I've yet to figure out why, but I've been rolling them for, roughly 12 years, and I love them to death, ever since I got my first pair. They're Shadows. This one is not your typical Shadow. This is a hodgepodge of two different skates. This is actually a Shadow 2.0 skeleton mixed with the parts from a Damian Wilson Pro model that I bought in 2008 because that was, as far as I'm concerned, the best Shadow skate they had ever produced. Damian Wilson, the things that he wanted to do with it, they were subtle, but they were solid. And so with that skate, I really fell in love with it, but when I got the 2.0, I was not really impressed with a number of things. The most important, the biggest factor of what I was not impressed with was this two-cuff system. Up until I got the 2.0s, every Shadow skate that I'd ever ridden in, because I started with the Latimer, and then I had the Farmer, and then I got the Wilson, they were all one-piece cuffs. And with this 2.0 system, they went to the cuff bolt two-piece system. And I'm okay with it. My only big complaint about it is, for whatever reason, and I don't know if this is just a USD thing, because even back in the day when I rode Thrones, I had Jeff Frederick Thrones, and I had some custom black ones that I had for a while, and I had Dustin Latimer, the first Dustin Latimer UFS Thrones. For whatever reason, cuff bolts with USD just loosen way quicker than any other skate I've ever owned, and I'll never figure out how, but that's what they do. And the same thing still happens with these. I don't understand it. Before every skate session, I don't care if I was only skating 5 minutes the last time, I have to tighten these, and it's gotten to the point now that I don't only tighten these, but I also tighten the frame bolts, because now my paranoia is kicked in. But, to each their own. But for me, it's always been Shadow. But the thing that I really miss from the old stuff was the back of the cuff on the Damians, the Wilsons. He had a V-cut, which doesn't sound like it should matter all that much, but believe it or not, that gave that skate so much flexibility, and I do miss it immensely. And so I do miss that a lot. The other reason why I decided to put this piece on the skate was because, and this is something that I noticed with the 2.0s and later, the toe pad, they don't really exist. They just have the strap across, and the only time I've seen Shadows with that toe strap, or if they even have the little piece of toe padding, I was like, that's not good. I don't really approve of that. I wasn't a fan of them with the original Latimers, but when Damian Wilson did this, I thought this was the smartest thing they could have possibly done. Kept it all like one piece, and so it doesn't naturally fit on here for this new system, but it still works for me, so I'm not really complaining. And it works well for me because for whatever reason, it makes me feel like my foot's really in here, even though all you're doing is connecting this piece together, if that makes any sense. But for me, it works. The other thing is, and as you can tell what I normally do. This is I'm right-footed, and you can tell I do sole and negative tricks. So, yeah, this thing's gotten its fair share. This is actually newer. prior to March of 2018, my Shadow skates, I had, of all things, I was still riding Kaiser suspension frames. I don't even know the last time that those were even produced, but I was still riding a pair of black and white Kaiser suspension frames. Now, Kaiser suspension frames are what we call a freestyle frame because wheels 2 and 3 are missing. And they replaced them with these big rocker arms. And it gave you suspension so that if you still wanted to do gaps, because I still like doing those back then, it would take a lot of the tension out of it. And so I really enjoyed them. Plus the H-block was a lot bigger. Not that I had problems with hitting my H-block, but it allowed me to grind on bigger, thicker objects, which I enjoyed. But that was my setup at the time. Now I'm riding what we call anti-rocker, which is 2 big wheels on the outside on 1 and 4, and then 2 smaller wheels on the inside in 2 and 3. And in the 8 months that I've been riding this style, I'm okay with it. I mean, this side's been beaten up a little bit more so they don't roll too much, but my left skate, they sort of still make the the weird noise when I'm rolling, when they occasionally make contact with the ground. And I don't know, it feels kind of cheap to me, but you know, what do you expect for little plastic wheels? I like it. I mean, when I first started out, I was riding the style that we call just flat, which was 4 equal size wheels. But back in the day, I didn't have that much money, so I'd ride a weird kind of anti-rocker before I went to suspension and freestyle frames after the Shadows came out with the Moop frames. But before that, what I would normally do is I would buy new wheels, and usually only 4, and then my older wheels would go in the middle, so it'd be like a weird kind of anti-rocker, but still anti-rocker nonetheless. And that's usually how I used to roll. I sort of had to stop that after a while because I actually broke a pair of 50-50 John Julio 50-50 frames, the yellow ones before they went UFS, on my Jeff Frederick Thrones, which, I mean, wow, we're really throwing them back now with that. But yeah, back when the UFS system was not a thing, because if you've been out of the game for a while, they finally, back in the early 2000s, decided to make frames universal. And so basically the whole system is set up with just 2 bolts in the skate that hold the frame. And no matter what, these frames, no matter what frame, no matter what skate, they'll match, which is great. Which, when that first came out, I thought, thank God, how did we take this long to figure this out? But they finally did it, and it made sense, and it's worked ever since. So that's the way that I ride. Like I say, if you go, so mainly what I would say, this is usually like the biggest part that most people would customize when it comes to frames. It really depends on what you want to do. If you're looking for speed to go up to your tricks and whatnot, you normally ride flat rocker. 4 even-sized wheels all across the board, rather big. Get a lot more speed. If you go for gaps, if you get softer wheels, because wheel styles are different, they'll cushion the gaps a little bit better. Anti-rocker, still do a few of the gaps, but it's going to be a little bit harder on the frame itself. Anti-rocker is more akin for grinding things. Then you got your freestyle, which for nearly 10 years that's what I was doing, and it's not gap friendly, which is fine. Now the suspension frames, yeah, those are a nice compromise for that. But the great thing about the freestyle frames with that huge H-block in the middle, you have a lot more space to grind on. So the bigger, thicker objects like parking lot pipes that are there, you can grind those way better. And I always argued you had a little bit more control. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but for me, I always felt like I had control. Maybe not in the terms of backslides as much, but like any other grind that I had, like my unities and my front sides and my Farvignugens, I always felt better with the freestyle frame. Like I said, for me, toe safety was always an important thing. If you ride some of the other skates, your regular hard boot, toe safety is not that big of a deal as much. I haven't ridden a carbon yet, so I don't know, but I know when I had my Deshies way back in the day, that was important because Lord only knows if your other skate landed on your toe, it was going to hurt. But yeah, that's kind of how I roll. I mean, I still keep my original. These are original Chris Farmer Shadow foot wraps. These are his first foot wraps, and I still have them, so you can see they're a little worn. But that's what I still roll in. And like I say, for me, this has been my setup of choice as of the last 8 months. I get a lot of good control out of this. Still feel good about them. Solid skate. I know USD is going to be putting out a brand new Shadow skate, and they're going back. One of them is going back to the solid cuff, which I probably am going to buy because I've loved Shadow since my first pair, and I really want to continue that. And so I'm probably going to go with that. So if I do end up buying those, I will do a test thing, what have you, on this channel, and we'll see how it rides for an old man. But yeah, I just wanted to share with you my setup and how I ride currently. This is pretty much what I've been rolling for the last 8 months on a regular basis. And if you have any questions, let me know. I will give you my insight, my advice on what would probably be a good idea for what your setup should be. But to each their own. I always suggest experimenting, figuring out sort of what best suits you. I mean, not everybody's a flat rider. Not everybody's freestyle. Experiment. Think about how you want to ride and what you think would best fit. Like I say, if you really like to grind big things, go with freestyle. If you're more into speed and you feel you're more accurate, go with flat. To each their own. But that's the way that I roll. And yeah, that's how this geezer rolls. Tune in next time. Bye.